First this morning, at least 87 people have died in the latest Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The World Health Organization declares the crisis as an international public health emergency, and neighboring Uganda steps up surveillance following imported cases linked to the virus.
Health authorities in Central Africa are intensifying efforts to contain a growing Ebola outbreak in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, as neighbouring Uganda steps up surveillance following imported cases linked to the virus. Emergency treatment centres are being prepared in DR Congo's Ituri province as the World Health Organization declared the Ebola outbreak an international public health emergency. Africa Centres for Disease Control and Prevention says at least 336 suspected and confirmed infections and 87 deaths have been recorded so far in the country's 17th Ebola outbreak since 1976. Health teams are working in Bunia, Rwampara and Mongwalu to isolate patients and trace contacts in a region already struggling with insecurity and limited healthcare access. DR Congo's health minister urged residents to seek medical help quickly.
The sooner we take the patient in for care, the sooner we treat them, the sooner we will stop the movement, what we call the spread of the virus. So this is not a mystical disease. Make yourself known. Make yourself known so that you can be taken care of and so that we can prevent the disease from spreading. That is really the message. Treatment is free. Come and get treated.
Regional concern has also spread into Uganda, where authorities confirmed a fatal imported case involving a Congolese man who had travelled to Kampala. The World Health Organization warns that cross-border movement and weak surveillance systems could complicate containment efforts. Some residents fear the outbreak could disrupt travel and daily life, while others called for stronger awareness campaigns and preventive measures.
It creates a challenge with the travel element because then Uganda lies at a risk of facing a travel ban, and for a person like me who is engaged in travels here and there, if we are put on a travel ban, very many things in the background get disorganized, and it is not good for the country as a whole. I would like the government to, one, quickly spread awareness about Ebola and how it is spread, to break down this information even for the layest of people to understand, but also start to institute measures to avoid the spread of Ebola in Kampala and Uganda as a whole, so that there is a feeling of safeness, of security against this disease of Ebola.
Someone who works in Kampala, I didn't receive well the news of Ebola outbreak in Uganda because I work in an environment where I meet many people every day. So it puts me on a high risk of getting also Ebola.
Health authorities across the region say surveillance, contact tracing and public awareness efforts are now being intensified as officials work to prevent the outbreak from spreading further beyond eastern DR Congo and Uganda.
Staying on this story, the new Ebola outbreak in Central Africa is renewing attention on one of the world's most dangerous viral diseases. Here's an explainer on that.
Ebola is a rare but severe illness in humans and is often fatal. The disease spreads through direct contact with the blood or body fluids of a person who is sick with or has died from Ebola. Contaminated objects and surfaces can also carry the virus. Symptoms can appear between 2 and 21 days after infection. They can begin suddenly with fever, fatigue, muscle pain, headache and sore throat, followed by vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, rash, and signs of kidney or liver problems. There are approved vaccines and treatments for some Ebola cases, but health officials say outbreak control still depends on early care, isolation, contact tracing, safe burials, and strong infection prevention. Ebola disease was first recorded in 1976 in 2 simultaneous outbreaks, including one in what is now the Democratic Republic of Congo. The disease takes its name from the Ebola River, near the village where one of those outbreaks occurred. Its worst outbreak came in West Africa between 2014 and 2016, when more than 28,600 cases were reported and over 11,000 people died.
Now let's take a look at the story shaping the day across the globe, and we head to our leading story, Ebola, which is on a number of front pages, which I just wanted to take you through. We have it on CNN, what we know about the latest Ebola outbreak after WHO declares global health emergency. This is actually a public health emergency, is what the WHO's declared. I know CNN is saying global, but it's actually a public health emergency. It hasn't turned into a global one right now. And if we go to the next news website that's also leading on this, as you heard in the report previously before, just a bit of an explainer as to how Ebola came to be known first in 1976. Now, this is also on Al Jazeera's website, as you can see here as well. And what the virus that killed dozens of people, the worst occurring from 2014 to 2016, but was first discovered in 1976 with 2 strains of Ebola virus affecting nearly 600 people in South Sudan and the Democratic of Congo when it was first discovered. Now, there's been a number of outbreaks through the centuries from the 70s and the 90s. The worst case was in 2014 with a number of West African countries reporting and having a number of cases. Over 11,000 people died, and some spreading beyond the continent of Africa. And if we just go to the next website, which I believe is the New York Times, also leading with this, what to know about the latest Ebola outbreak. So this is everywhere. The World Health Organization is definitely paying very close attention. And as you saw in our report, there are a number of health officials saying for people to be checked, and if they are feeling any types of sickness or symptoms, to come and receive some form of medical aid in relation to that, but we will keep you updated. Now let's turn to the next story this morning, which has just broken in the last couple of hours, and that's what's going on in China, because right now we know that there has been an earthquake where we now know 2 people have died in China's southwest region of Guangxi after a 5.2 magnitude earthquake struck. We just got some video here of rescue workers helping citizens leave certain residential areas and making sure that people are safe and kept away from any type of tremor. Now, it struck this morning, forcing thousands of residents to evacuate, and 1 person is still missing, and more than 7,000 residents have been evacuated from the Luchu city area after the earthquake damaged buildings and disrupted transport services. Now, according to China Earthquake Network Center, the earthquake struck at a depth of 8 kilometers just after midnight. Reports say that 13 buildings collapsed overall following the earthquake, which prompted a large-scale evacuation across the affected areas of the city. As you can see here, some residents leaving their homes. And this video shows rescue teams working through the night, with operations continuing into the day as several collapsed buildings were seen in the area affected. Now, it's likely that maybe there might be more injuries, or more people might unfortunately have died due to that, but we will keep you updated throughout the course of the day. China is at least 4 to 5 hours ahead of Baku, but we will make sure that we provide you with the latest in relation to this particular story. Okay, now let's go over to the next story this morning. That's on Al Jazeera. And the headline there is drone strike sparks fire on perimeter of UAE's Barakah nuclear power plant. Now, what's happened? A drone strike had triggered a fire near its nuclear power station on Sunday. Now, they've called the incident a dangerous escalation. Officials are investigating the source of the strike. No one really knows where or who it has come from. Now, the country's defense ministry said 3 drones had entered into the UAE from the western border direction, while 2 were intercepted. The 3rd drone struck an electrical generator, sparking a fire. Now, no injuries have been reported, and there was no impact on radiological safety levels, local authorities have said. Now, the UAE's foreign ministry called the strike an unacceptable act of aggression and said it had the right to respond to any hostilities. Now, the country's defense ministry, meanwhile, also said it would firmly confront any attempts to undermine the country's security. Now, officials have said they do not know where the drone was launched, but are looking into it. Now, previously we know that the UAE has accused Iran of being behind attacks on its energy and economic infrastructure since the war broke out in the region in February. But once we know exactly where that particular drone missile has come from, we'll keep you informed in relation to that. Now let's turn over to the next story, still staying in the Middle East, and we go over to what Trump has been saying overnight. On the BBC website, Trump warns clock is ticking for Iran as peace progress stalls. So what is going on? Trump actually wrote on his social platform Truth, saying that they better get moving fast or there won't be anything left of them. Time is of the essence, is what he wrote in capital letters. Now, this message came as the president was due to speak with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday, and then Iranian media reported that the US had failed to make any concrete concessions in its response to Tehran's latest proposals to end the conflict. Now, there's been a lack of compromise from Washington, which would lead to an impasse in the negotiations, the semi-official Mehr news agency reported. The president warned earlier that this week that the truce was on a massive life support, which is what US President Donald Trump said after he rejected Tehran's demands, labeling them totally unacceptable. And Ismail Baghai, an Iranian foreign ministry spokesperson, actually insisted they were responsible and generous. So just a reminder very quickly as well of what Iran proposes, that they want an end of the war on all fronts, a halt to the US naval blockade of Iranian ports, and guarantees of no further attacks on Iran, which is currently is what Donald Trump is saying, that no, it's not something that he wants at that particular time, and it keeps talking about the fact that he does not want Iran to have any form of nuclear weapons. But we will be discussing this particular standstill between the two countries later on in the program with an expert in political analyst and political agenda, especially when it comes to this situation in the Middle East. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Now let's turn over to our last headline this morning, and that's on the Deutsche Welle website in regards to Cuba. And Cuba buys more than 300 drones from Russia and Iran. So what we know is that Cuba has acquired more than 300 military drones, and that's according to classified intelligence cited by Axios news outlet in the US. Now, the report was published on Sunday and actually alleges that Cuba had discussed plans to use military drones to attack the US naval base in Guantanamo Bay, as well as military vessels and possibly Florida. Now, the Trump administration is concerned because of developments in drone warfare and the presence of Iranian military advisors is in Havana. Axios cited a senior US official as saying, now, Cuba has been acquiring attack drones from Russia and Iran since 2023 and is seeking to buy more, is what US officials told Axios. But Cuba has denied reports that it has required hundreds of drones to attack the US, as its foreign minister accused President Donald Trump of building a fraudulent case for war. Now, Cuba's foreign minister accused the US of fabricating a fraudulent case to justify economic sanctions and potentially military intervention. He actually quoted, with no legitimate excuse whatsoever, the US government is day after day building a fraudulent case to justify a ruthless economic war against Cuban people and eventually military aggression, which was what he wrote on X on Sunday. Now, Cuba neither threatens nor desires war, is what he added, and said that it did not explicitly, and also in that message, it did not explicitly mention the drone allegations in his statement. Well, that is the morning press roundup for now. Now I'm going to take a short break. When I return, I'll discuss the rest of the global stories. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak. Now let's have a look at the rest of the global stories this morning. And we head over to the US with US President Donald Trump ramping up pressure on Iran after a drone strike sparked a fire at a nuclear plant in the United Arab Emirates. The latest tensions come as reported peace proposals between Washington and Tehran appear increasingly strained.
Regime's conventional ballistic missile.
US President Donald Trump has issued a new warning to Iran, saying in a Truth Social post that the clock is ticking, and urging Iranian leaders to get moving fast. The post came after a drone strike caused a fire at the Barakah nuclear power plant in the United Arab Emirates. Officials in Abu Dhabi say an investigation is underway and stressed the UAE has the right to respond to what it called terrorist attacks.
Saudi Arabia also says it intercepted 3 drones entering from Iraqi airspace and warned it would take necessary operational measures to protect its sovereignty and security. The developments come as progress appears stalled in efforts to end the US-Israeli war with Iran and restart shipping in the Gulf. Axios also reports Trump is expected to meet top national security advisors on Tuesday to discuss options for military action regarding Iran. Meanwhile, Iran's semi-official Fars news agency reports that the United States has outlined 5 conditions in response to Tehran's latest peace proposal, citing an informed source. According to the report, the conditions include refusing to pay compensation or war damages, Iran transferring 400 kilograms of enriched uranium to the United States, and Iran being allowed to keep only 1 nuclear facility operational. The report also says Washington rejected unfreezing Iranian assets, while ceasefires on various fronts would be conditional on the start of negotiations. Fars adds that Iran has demanded an end to hostilities, the lifting of sanctions, compensation for war damage, and recognition of its sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz as conditions for a second round of talks. There has been no official response from either Iran or the United States regarding the report.
Turning to the Middle East, and at least 8 people were reported killed in Israeli strikes across the Gaza Strip, according to local health officials. The latest escalation also included the killing of a senior Hamas commander, as ceasefire talks between the 2 sides remain stalled.
Israeli strikes in the Gaza Strip killed at least 8 people on Sunday, according to Gaza health officials, as ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas showed little progress. The Israeli military said the strikes targeted Hamas militants and infrastructure, while Palestinian health officials reported civilian casualties in several incidents. In central Gaza, an airstrike near a community kitchen close to Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah killed at least 3 people, with medics also reporting 2 further deaths in a separate strike near a bakery in the same area. Emergency crews and residents searched through rubble after strikes hit a residential building in Gaza. Witnesses described heavy destruction and fires in the area, while Palestinian civil defense officials said rescue efforts were hindered by limited equipment and ongoing damage. Israel confirmed the killing of senior Hamas commander Izz al-Din al-Haddad in a strike on Gaza City on Friday. Hamas later confirmed his death, along with members of his family.
Over the weekend, we eliminated the master murderer Izz al-Din al-Haddad. He was effectively number 1 in Hamas's military wing, that is Hamas in Gaza, and he has been eliminated.
Indirect talks toward a long-term ceasefire remain ongoing, with both sides still divided over key security arrangements and the terms of a possible agreement.
At least 5 people, including 2 children, were killed and several others wounded in Israeli strikes, according to Lebanese health officials. Strikes hit multiple towns, with reports of additional attacks and drone activity in other areas. Drones were also seen flying over Beirut and surrounding areas. The strikes come despite the ceasefire extension aimed at reducing tensions along the border. Turning to the war in Ukraine, Russia has responded to one of Ukraine's largest drone attacks on Moscow, with overnight missile and drone strikes targeting several regions across Ukraine. The latest escalation comes after Russian officials described the Ukrainian barrage as one of the biggest aerial attacks on the capital since the start of the war.
Russia launched overnight drone and missile strikes on Ukraine, targeting the southern city of Odessa and the southeastern city of Dnipro, Ukrainian officials said Monday. Authorities reported at least 12 people were injured in attacks across central and southern regions of the country. In Odessa, a major Black Sea export port, drones struck residential buildings as well as a school and kindergarten. Regional officials said an 11-year-old boy and a 59-year-old man were injured. In Dnipro, regional governor Oleksandr Hanzha said at least 9 people were wounded in the attacks. The latest Russian strikes come after Ukraine carried out one of its largest attacks on the Moscow region since the start of the war more than 4 years ago. Russian authorities said at least 4 people were killed. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the large-scale drone operation was a response to continued Russian attacks on Ukraine.
The Russians need to think about their refineries, their oil facilities, their enterprises, and not about how to disrupt the lives of other peoples in Ukraine, Moldova, or any other neighboring country. Today, the activity indicators show that our proactive operations per day are higher than those of the Russians, and this is a very serious result. We will increase all forms of supply for our army, drones, ground robots, shells, all resources to maintain proper protection and our active frontline operations.
Russian officials claimed more than 1,000 Ukrainian drones were intercepted over the past 24 hours. Russia's defense ministry said it intercepted 556 drones overnight and into Sunday morning, with another 30 drones shot down after dawn. According to the ministry, the interceptions took place across 14 Russian regions, as well as annexed Crimea and over the Black and Azov Seas, marking one of the largest Ukrainian aerial assaults of the war so far.
Now we head over to this report that looks at Russia's IT systems. Everyday digital communication is under growing strain as internet access and popular online platforms face tighter restrictions in the country. For many businesses that rely on these tools to stay connected with customers, the changes are creating uncertainty and operational challenges. Here's more.
Small businesses in Russia are severely affected by growing restrictions on popular messaging apps such as Telegram, tighter VPN controls, and repeated mobile internet shutdowns and outages in Moscow linked to security measures. Some businesses report real financial and reputational losses. A Moscow restaurant, Skrepka, said a recent outage left it unable to process online orders, leading to customer complaints.
On the eve of Easter, we decided to sell kuliches, traditional Russian Easter cakes, via Telegram. The idea was brilliant, but the execution was flawed. On Saturday, when we had a lot of orders, our Telegram chatbot crashed and remained non-functional for an hour. The problem was that our clients had to show a QR code to pick up their kuliches, but these QR codes failed to load. Telegram was down, so the clients started shouting.
A property firm also reported missed messages and delayed communication, resulting in lost deals and reduced income.
When Telegram got blocked, things of course became more complicated, as not everyone has tools to bypass the restrictions. As a result, some messages do not get through. Others arrive only partially, and large files often fail to load. Our presentations are quite heavy, so we either have to send them by email, or clients have to look for a place where they can connect to Wi-Fi.
Entrepreneurs like Moscow-based dogware seller Natalia Kukovinets have been directly affected as her small business, Wagon Tails, which sells dog clothing and accessories, relies heavily on Telegram for all customer orders. Despite criticism, the Kremlin has said it will not compensate businesses for losses caused by internet shutdowns. President Vladimir Putin has defended the restrictions as necessary for security, though surveys show most Russians say they are making daily life harder. At the same time, authorities are promoting a state-backed messaging app called Max, but uptake remains limited as most businesses and customers rely on Telegram despite its instability. At this point, the situation extends beyond individual cases, with around 2.9 million small and medium-sized businesses and more than 14 million self-employed workers in Russia facing immediate impact.
Now over to South America, and 10 people, including a child, were killed in an armed attack in central Mexico on Sunday. Authorities say the victims, 6 men, 3 women and a minor, were targeted by the gunmen. State and federal security forces have launched a joint investigation and deployed operations to track down those responsible. Officials pledged zero impunity and said investigators are working to determine the motive behind the attack. Now, a powerful 5.2 magnitude earthquake struck Lochu in southern China overnight, collapsing homes and triggering a major rescue operation. Authorities said 13 houses collapsed, leaving 2 people dead and 1 missing. More than 7,000 residents have been moved to safety. Tremors were felt across several nearby cities while emergency response measures were quickly activated. More than 300 emergency personnel, dozens of fire engines and search dogs have been deployed as crews continue searching for survivors through the rubble. Taiwanese leader William Lai Ching-te has said Taiwan will never be sacrificed or traded away in response to comments by US President Donald Trump calling for both Taiwan and China to cool down amid rising tensions. Trump made the remarks in a Fox News interview, saying he did not want conflict and hoped that both sides would reduce tensions. He said US policy toward Taipei remained unchanged and that he was still considering new weapon sales to the island. In a Facebook post, Lai said, "Peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait is a shared interest and that the island's future must be decided by its people," rejecting any suggestion that its sovereignty could be compromised.
因为台湾在进行这些国防预算的时候，
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said plans to strengthen frontline units on the border with South Korea as well as other major units were key to more thoroughly deterring war. According to state media, Kim called for changes to military training systems and an expansion of practical drills to reflect the evolving nature of modern warfare. He also stressed the need to modernize combat training in line with rapidly advancing military technology and equipment. Kim said planned projects should redefine operational concepts and apply them directly to unit-level combat readiness. Now over to West Africa, and Nigeria's military says ISIS global second-in-command Abu Bilal al-Minuki has been killed in Matali, Borno State. The army said that the early morning air and land operation was carried out with US Africa Command and ended with no less of troops or assets. It described the killing as the most significant counter-terrorism result since the Operation Hadin-K began. Several other commanders and fighters were also killed, according to the statement. USM Alger fans filled the capital streets of Algeria with fireworks, flares and chants after their team won the CAF Confederation Cup. Let's go to this report.
Fireworks, flares and chants filled the streets of Algiers as USM Alger fans celebrated their team's CAF Confederation Cup victory. The Algerian side beat Egypt's Zamalek 8-7 on penalties in Cairo on Saturday after the final ended 1-1 on aggregate. Zamalek won the second leg 1-0 through a penalty, cancelling out USM Algiers' first leg advantage and sending the tie to a shootout. But the night ended in celebration for the visitors after Zamalek's Mohamed Shahata missed the 8th spot kick and Glody Leconza converted the decisive penalty for USM Alger.
We deserve it. The players thankfully played strongly. Congratulations to us for winning the 3rd star.
Supporters waved flags, lit flares and sang through the night as the club claimed the Confederation Cup for the 2nd time after its first title in 2023. Zamalek, who had won the competition in 2019 and 2024, lost a Confederation Cup final for the first time.
Now we're going to take a quick break. When I return, we'll discuss the the regional stories as well as the headlines, and I'll be joined by a guest to go into that in more detail. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back and thank you for joining me this morning. Now we're going to turn to the stories making its way over in the regional area, and we head first to Pakistan. Pakistan's Interior Minister Mohsen Naqvi met Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and Parliament Speaker in Tehran during a two-day visit focused on regional dialogue and peace efforts. The members came after Pakistan-mediated talks between Iran and the United States were suspended last week following disagreements over recent proposals. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi earlier said the mediation process had not failed, but described it as being in difficulty due to what he called contradictory messages from Washington. Turning over to Azerbaijan, and the president of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, held a series of meetings with foreign delegations in Baku on Sunday, including Swati III, King of Eswatini, and William Ruto, President of Kenya.
President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev held a series of meetings in Baku. Aliyev met with Mswati III, King of Eswatini, who thanked Azerbaijan for the invitation to visit the country. The two sides discussed expanding cooperation in energy, mining and other sectors. The Azerbaijani president also held talks with William Ruto, President of Kenya. Ruto described the trip as his first visit to Azerbaijan, while the two leaders discussed cooperation in energy, agriculture and the defense industry. The Kenyan president also praised Azerbaijan's efforts to advance the peace agenda with Armenia.
Now, the 13th World Urban Forum has officially started in Azerbaijan's capital, Baku, with the ministerial meeting on the new urban agenda. The meeting opened with remarks from the UN Habitat Executive Director and Azerbaijan's Urban Planning Committee Chairman, setting the stage for global discussions on housing, urban transformation and the future of cities. Our reporter Nurai Mustafa has more.
Events held within the framework of World Urban Forum 13 officially kicked off in Baku today. The forum is jointly organized by UN Habitat and the government of Azerbaijan. On the first day of the forum, Azerbaijan is chairing the ministerial meeting on the new urban agenda.
This World Urban Forum has a clear focus on housing. So we expect, after this couple of days here in Baku, to come up with policies, with solutions at all levels to address the crisis that people are facing all over the world. People living in informal settlements, people that have no money to buy or to rent a house, and people that are living on the streets. That's what we expect at this World Urban Forum, and that we have a big coalition to address this crisis, because we need everybody. We need the private sector, we need the civil society, we need the local authorities, and the national strong policies.
Vision is more urgent today.
Forum in Baku is following traditions established on previous forums. But meanwhile, we've tried, and I believe we're successful, to introduce some new elements. We have leaders segment, we have bigger ministerial meeting, and several more initiatives which will be presented during forum days.
Introduced as a new initiative within the World Urban Forum program, the meeting aims to assess the work carried out midway through the 20-year implementation period of new urban agenda, identify existing challenges and discuss priorities for the next stage.
The discussions in Baku are key because these will be taken to the United Nations meeting in July, where the midterm review of the new urban agenda will be taking place. So this new review is looking at 2036 from 2026. So as the Director General of UN Habitat said here, it's not only a moment to review, but also to correct trajectory, because you have to incorporate resilience, you have to incorporate dignity, justice in the housing, and housing is at the base of human rights.
This forum is extremely important because it brings together most of the world's nations to discuss issues related to urbanization, urban planning and development. But above all, the central theme is housing the world. Housing the world means ensuring that every citizen has access to decent shelter. This highlights the fact that urbanization must take into account the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the commitments made by African states during the Nairobi Forum last month.
It's emphasized that the meeting serves as an important platform for strengthening international cooperation in this field of urban planning and sustainable development.
Staying on the World Urban Forum, amid rising pressure on cities from rapid urbanization, climate change and housing shortages, global attention is once again turning to urban solutions. And at the forum, it opens this week as a key UN platform, bringing these discussions to the global stage. Let's take a look at this.
Cities are increasingly at the centre of global action on climate change, housing and sustainable development. And one of the key platforms shaping that conversation opens this week. The World Urban Forum, established by the United Nations in 2001 and first held in 2002 in Nairobi, Kenya, was created in response to rapid global urbanisation and the growing need for coordinated action on challenges facing cities. These include issues such as housing, infrastructure, inequality and climate resilience. Unlike formal UN negotiations, WUF does not produce binding decisions or resolutions. Instead, it serves as a global ideas and dialogue platform where governments, city leaders, experts and civil society come together to exchange solutions and build partnerships. It also supports the implementation of the new urban agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals, especially SDG 11 on sustainable cities and communities. The latest edition, WUF 12, took place in 2024 in Cairo, Egypt, focusing on practical local responses to global urban challenges, including housing, climate action, financing and digital transformation.
Tom rightly puts it. It all starts at home. Real progress begins at the local level, on the ground, in communities and people's lives. World leaders have just adopted the Pact for the Future. It's an important new tool to advance our vital work, accelerate the SDGs and address inequalities.
WUF 13 opens this weekend in Baku, Azerbaijan, under the theme Housing the World, Safe and Resilient Cities and Communities. The session will place a strong focus on the global housing crisis and how cities can respond with more inclusive, resilient and sustainable urban development as the world moves closer to the 2030 SDG deadline. Over time, WUF has become one of the world's largest urban gatherings, shaping global thinking on cities and sustainable development, even without producing formal agreements.
Now, for Baku, the opening of the WF 13 represents far more than the hosting of another major international gathering. The forum places Azerbaijan at the centre of a widening Euro-Asian conversation about transport corridors, smart urban systems, climate resilience, regional integration and post-war redevelopment. With more than 28,000 participants, hundreds of whom are institutional partners and the largest urban expo in WF history. The event reflects Baku's broader ambition to position itself. Joining me now to further discuss this is Elmira Talibzadeh, political analyst in the Caucasus Policy Analysis Centre. Welcome to the programme this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Well, we've just seen a couple of reports from A News reporters there of the World Urban Forum kicking off on Sunday and a number of key issues coming out. But what I wanted to first ask is, in this increasingly unstable environment with conflicts and climate change and a number of different things, how are cities becoming geopolitical actors? And does Baku seek to position itself as one of the new strategic urban models connecting East and West across Eurasia?
Thank you for your brilliant question. Of course, the opening ceremony of WUF 13 was more than just a forum on climate changes, on urban changes, on city architecture, etc. I think this is the platform where Azerbaijan can send its message signals, and it's a platform where Azerbaijan attempts to export the ideas, the narratives that South Caucasus, that our region, that located between the very, very dangerous points of war, because we know the situation in the Middle East, we know the situation in Iran, we know that Russia is in the war with Ukraine in our north borders. But anyway, we're able and despite any of climate, weather changes, any, I don't know, heavy rainfalls and etc., we're able to continue this forum. And as you said before, there is about 670 organizations from 66 countries across the world, and this is very extreme number for World Urbanistic Forum. And as I want to say that Azerbaijan is now want to export idea that our country, our region, is not just a region of external conflicts, of negotiation. We are the region that can export ideas of multivectoral policy, international cooperation with organization, with other countries. We're able to show that Azerbaijan is a new born state that is ready to invite new organization, new initiative to our region, new ideas to our region. So I think our multivectoral policy, as our even President Ilham Aliyev said, World Urban Forum 13 is more just an urbanistic forum. It's the place where we can even, we have some evidences to show that Azerbaijan is capable to be a platform, international platform, where some other countries have opportunity to raise their voices.
Great. And to what extent then does Azerbaijan view urban transformation as part of a broader multi-vector foreign policy strategy?
Well, you know, we have a new model of our regional strategy, and this should be an example for other countries, because after 44-day war, after Karabakh war, after independence and our territories recognized by international law and international community, first for the history, first for the time, we're showing that in our places, in our regions, in our countries, cities, in our cities, there is an opportunity, there is a chance to make something like enlarge the ideas of this narratives of these forums. We also faced the criticism during COP29, if you remember. There was a skepticism, there was criticism coming from some international actors, but we showed that we're capable to solve all of our problems ourselves, and more than we can even give a platform for other organizations, for other countries to make something better in our territories. For example, in our regions, for example, in Zengilan, there is a new opportunity to be involved in the programs of smart cities, new settlements, green settlements, to be involved in some green projects in Zengilan, in Karabakh region. So this is our new regional model in this field, in the field of World Urbanistic Forum, in COP29. And also I want to say this is something new for us, because even Armenia, our neighbors, in spite of our negotiation process, there was some talkings, there was discussion that will Armenia took part in the World Urban Forum. Yeah. This was for the first time. And it's very positive way. I think this is the more positive that for example, 20 or 5 years ago, it was unimaginable.
Yes. It's very interesting that you say that, because I wanted to direct another question in regards to the Karabakh and Izangezur, because one of the defining undercurrents, you could say, of WUF 13 is likely to be the reconstruction of Karabakh and Izangezur. Do you think then, does Azerbaijan see these territories as geopolitical showcase projects designed to demonstrate state capacity, technological modernization, and a new model of post-conflict urban planning?
I think it's not political, but kind of geopolitical, and not the project. It's, I think, more just ideas that we're ready to export to other countries. We're not looking for Karabakh or Karabakh issue, never been looking for Karabakh issue as for issue of problematic or for conflict. We know that it's our territories, we just proved it to all world community. And now we want to rebuild this territory. We want to invite some, in good way, to invite some new organization, new international actors to be involved in the process of rebuilding Karabakh. We want to encourage them because we need, of course, we can't do it lonely. We need to invite new investigation to this region, new companies, new cooperation. For example, I see even the TRIP project, it's more trans-logistic economic project, but anyway, we can say there's a parallel with TRIP project. It's good for us. It's not good for Azerbaijan, but for all South Caucasus region.
And the forum also arrives during a time in which the Middle Powers are gaining greater influence over global governance debates. Does WUF 13 reflect the rise of a new generation of regional actors using urban diplomacy and infrastructure partnerships to expand geopolitical relevance?
I think after World Urban Forum, many of countries will recognize Azerbaijan as middle power, as you said. It's a very good example. In Central Asia, Azerbaijan also with having this forum, World Urban Forum, linking the Central Asia, China to Europe. And for example, in Central Asia, there is also middle power. Kazakhstan, they're also taking place in this World Urban Forum. This is a model. In South Caucasus, there is, as Kazakhstan in Central Asia, there is Azerbaijan in the South Caucasus. We can be a model to any other countries in this middle power strategy. And I want to say that it's not only about, urban, it's not about the cities, it's not about architecture, it's more about linking ideas, linking Western ideas to Eastern ideas, linking via middle corridor, Europe to Central Asia to China. It's more about our prestige, our reputation of Azerbaijan nowadays. We just proved it on our battlefield in 2020, 2023, and now we're proving it in our diplomacy area. We're proving it when we were hosting COP29, toward all of the criticism and skepticism. Now we're proving it on our Urban Forum and WUF 13.
Definitely. And this is my final question, but could Baku's hosting of this forum signal a broader redistribution of influence, I guess, in how the future of global urban order is conceptualized and financed?
Yes, of course. Even if you remembered yesterday, there was a news that after each year after this World Urban Forum, there will be some awards to the participants of this forum. And I think it's getting more like brand. It's getting like Azerbaijani World Urban Forum is getting like a more brand. And I think it's not the last time when World Urban Forum taking place in Azerbaijan. There will be a number of such international companies in Azerbaijan, festivals, forums, summits. And we showed in this, as I said before, despite the weather changes, despite the criticism, despite the skepticism, we showed that we are able, more than able, to have this forum, now hosting this forum here in Azerbaijan.
Yes, well, we have 5 more days, so there's going to be loads more of information coming out of it and how Azerbaijan positions itself. But thank you for coming on to the program today, Ms. Elmira Talabzadeh. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's time for a quick break. Now, when I return, I'll have a full update on the latest headlines, plus a look at what's making the front pages this morning. Make sure you stay with us. Hello, you're watching Daybreak live on A News, and if you're just joining me, I'm your host Nadia Jani, here to take you through the day's top stories. So let's take a look at the headlines. The World Health Organization declares Ebola outbreak in the DRC as a public health emergency. US President Donald Trump warns clock is ticking for Iran as peace progress stalls. And at least 4 people are killed in Russia as Ukraine launches retaliatory strikes. Now let's take a look at the stories shaping the day across the globe. And we head first to what's going on in China and Twitter in relation to a video that's popped up on there because 2 people have died in China's southwest region of Guangxi after a 5.2 magnitude earthquake struck this morning, forcing thousands of residents to evacuate. 1 person is missing and more than 7,000 residents have been evacuated from the Luochu city after the earthquake damaged buildings and disrupted transport services. Now, we should be able to get a video up very shortly, but just to let you know that according to China Earthquake Network's Center, the earthquake struck at the depth of 8 kilometers just after midnight. Reports say 13 buildings collapsed following the quake, prompting large-scale evacuation efforts across the affected city areas. Now, we did have some pictures, but we're having a tech issue at the moment, but it was just showing rescue teams working overnight with operations continuing throughout the day as several collapsed buildings were seen in the affected area and making sure residents were successfully and safely taken out of the building once they knew that the earthquake had taken place. But we'll provide you with more information later on in the programme in regards to this particular story. Okay, this is some of the pictures now coming up. And these are the search and rescue teams looking for any survivors, as well as the building that collapsed and getting search and rescue efforts to make sure that all residents are safely evacuated from this area. Now, we know that it's quite early in China this morning, but any other further update that we get, we will definitely let you know. Now, let's turn over to our next story, and that's on Deutsche Welle's website in regards to what's going on in Cuba. Now, Cuba buys more than 300 drones from Russia and Iran, a report has shown. Now, what we do know is that Cuba has acquired over 300 military drones, and that was according to classified intelligence cited by an American news website called Axios. The report published on Sunday alleges that Cuba had discussed plans to use military drones to attack the US naval base in Guantanamo Bay, as well as military vessels and possibly Florida. Now, the Trump administration is concerned because of these developments in drone warfare and the presence of Iranian military advisors in Havana as well. Now, Cuba has actually said and denied reports that it has required hundreds of drones to attack the US, as its foreign minister accused President Trump of building a fraudulent case for war, and it's not something that they are looking to do, and saying that actually that had been fabricated is what the foreign minister wrote on Twitter on Sunday, and mentioned that Cuba neither threatens nor desires war, but it did not explicitly express the mention of drones and whether or not it had bought over 300 drones from Iran or from Russia in relation to that intelligence that was found out. Now, let's turn over to our next headline this morning, and that's on the New York Times in regards to the public health emergency. The WHO declares Ebola outbreak in the DRC. Now, this information has just come out on Sunday, but we do know that there's a number of concerns that because around 80 people have actually died because of this particular disease, and there has been 246 suspected cases reported as well in the Ituri province, but this does not meet the criteria of a pandemic emergency, is what the WHO is saying. But the WHO warned it could potentially be a much larger outbreak than what is currently being detected and reported, with significant risk of local and a regional spread. Now, the current strain of Ebola is caused by the Bundibugyo virus, the health agency said, for which there is no approved drugs or vaccines, and early symptoms include fever, muscle pain, fatigue, headache and a sore throat. And that's what you can see here on the A News website, which we have got some information in relation to that. Now, let's go to our report that has more detail in relation to this top story.
Health authorities in Central Africa are intensifying efforts to contain a growing Ebola outbreak in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, as neighbouring Uganda steps up surveillance following imported cases linked to the virus. Emergency treatment centres are being prepared in DR Congo's Ituri province as the World Health Organization declared the Ebola outbreak an international public health emergency. Africa Centres for Disease Control and Prevention says at least 336 suspected and confirmed infections and 87 deaths have been recorded so far in the country's 17th Ebola outbreak since 1976. Health teams are working in Bunia, Rwampara and Mongwalu to isolate patients and trace contacts in a region already struggling with insecurity and limited healthcare access. DR Congo's health minister urged residents to seek medical help quickly.
The sooner we take the patient in for care, the sooner we treat them, the sooner we will stop the movement, what we call the spread of the virus. So this is not a mystical disease. Make yourself known. Make yourself known so that you can be taken care of and so that we can prevent the disease from spreading. That is really the message. Treatment is free. Come and get treated.
Regional concern has also spread into Uganda, where authorities confirmed a fatal imported case involving a Congolese man who had travelled to Kampala. The World Health Organization warns that cross-border movement and weak surveillance systems could complicate containment efforts. Some residents fear the outbreak could disrupt travel and daily life, while others called for stronger awareness campaigns and preventive measures.
It creates a challenge with the travel element because then Uganda lies at a risk of facing a travel ban, and for a person like me who is engaged in travels here and there, if we are put on a travel ban, very many things in the background get disorganized and it is not good for the country as a whole. I would like the government to, one, quickly spread awareness about Ebola and how it is spread, to break down this information even for the layest of people to understand, but also start to institute measures to avoid the spread of Ebola in Kampala and Uganda as a whole, so that there is a feeling of safeness, of security against this disease of Ebola. Someone who works in Kampala, I didn't receive well the news of Ebola outbreak in Uganda because I work in an environment where I meet many people every day. So it puts me on a high risk of getting also Ebola.
Health authorities across the region say surveillance, contact tracing and public awareness efforts are now being intensified as officials work to prevent the outbreak from spreading further beyond eastern DR Congo and Uganda.
Now, US President Donald Trump is ramping up pressure on Iran after a drone strike sparked a fire at a nuclear plant in the United Arab Emirates. The latest tensions come as reported peace proposals between Washington and Tehran appear increasingly strained.
Regime's conventional ballistic missile.
US President Donald Trump has issued a new warning to Iran, saying in a Truth Social post that the clock is ticking and urging Iranian leaders to get moving fast. The post came after a drone strike caused a fire at the Baraka nuclear power plant in the United Arab Emirates. Officials in Abu Dhabi say an investigation is underway and stressed the UAE has the right to respond to what it called terrorist attacks. Saudi Arabia also says it intercepted 3 drones entering from Iraqi airspace and warned it would take necessary operational measures to protect its sovereignty and security. The developments come as progress appears stalled in efforts to end the US-Israeli war with Iran and restart shipping in the Gulf. Axios also reports Trump is expected to meet top national security advisors on Tuesday to discuss options for military action regarding Iran. Meanwhile, Iran's semi-official Fars news agency reports that the United States has outlined 5 conditions in response to Tehran's latest peace proposal, citing an informed source. According to the report, the conditions include refusing to pay compensation or war damages, Iran transferring 400 kilograms of enriched uranium to the United States, and Iran being allowed to keep only 1 nuclear facility operational. The report also says Washington rejected unfreezing Iranian assets, while ceasefires on various fronts would be conditional on the start of negotiations. Fars adds that Iran has demanded an end to hostilities, the lifting of sanctions, compensation for war damage, and recognition of its sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz as conditions for a second round of talks. There has been no official response from either Iran or the United States regarding the report.
Staying on this topic, I'm now joined by Osama Rizvi, founder of Rizvi's Insights, to further discuss this ongoing situation. Welcome to the program again. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me today.
My first question in all of this is that US President Trump has warned for Iran to act quickly or face consequences, saying that the clock is ticking in his post on social media. What do you think of this message, and will it push Iran into making a deal?
Well, what is happening right now is that this appears to be a stalemate. Both the sides have their own conditions laid out, and both of the sides are not ready to meet those conditions. And as such, political posturing, this saber rattling, this pressure tactics, such things are expected. I believe that the recent visit of Trump to China also did not yield much results. Once again, I hold the perspective and opinion that China is the country that can sort of cajole Iran into opening up Strait of Hormuz, but right now their energy security is fixed. I mean, they don't have to worry about their energy security at the moment. It's not only about the inventories they've built, it's also about the diversification of the suppliers. So China's involvement is also lukewarm. In regards to the US's message to Iran, it's once again political posturing. We don't know at this point. Actually, anything can happen. We don't know whether they will actually go for further strikes after meeting with the security officials on Tuesday. Maybe Iran would strike as well. Maybe we will see, unfortunately, a restart of the war. Nobody knows what is going to happen. But one thing is for sure, that the chances of a ceasefire holding up are getting thin and very low as every day goes by, and I think it's a cause for concern for everyone.
It is, because there are hints whether or not the strike on the UAE power plant, whether or not that's coming from Iran. It hasn't actually been confirmed as yet, but are we seeing hints of aggression coming up back to the forefront, and whether or not Trump will also decide actually he's going to go down a military route? If he does decide to attack Iran, where could this lead us and for the wider region as well?
Well, first I'd like to address that the strike on UAE nuclear plant. I think it's now we have one war, one wider war, and then multiple other wars within that. For instance, now there is a clear geopolitical struggle ongoing between Iran and the UAE and Saudi Arabia. There are reports as well that maybe Saudi Arabia is willing to sign a non-defense agreement with Iran that would isolate UAE. How would UAE react to it? So the Gulf politics have also started to flare up now, and which only serves as further fuel to the fire we are already suffering from. And in terms of what happens if there is further strikes, I mean, what if analysis is always fun, but you don't know to what extent this can go. If it goes on, oil prices will trace their levels back up to $145, $150 per barrel. I'm talking about the physical markets. We saw Brent touching 145. That would, of course, translate into higher prices in Asian economies. Budgets are upcoming and due, for instance, in Pakistan this June, July. So we're going to see the consumers suffering a lot. More Federal Reserve Bank interest rates hike, and what is happening in the bond markets. Once again, very important. If you look at the UK 10-year Treasury yields, US 10-year Treasury yields, all of them have spiked up. That is a cause of concern for the Western leaders and economies, and maybe also becomes the factor that may prevent further escalation, at least by the US administration.
You mentioned previously before that Trump and Xi's visit, or Trump's visit to China, has been quite lukewarm, and I think many would also agree with you in relation to that. Why do you think that is? I think Trump was looking for more of a stronger arm from China to push Iran into some form of agreement or opening up the Strait of Hormuz. Why do you think things have actually plateaued and it's been very neutral in regards to that?
Well, there are a few things that are on the surface, that what happened during the meeting, what was discussed, and then there are a few things that would have also and certainly happened behind closed doors. I am assuming, this is just a conjecture, an educated guess, that maybe they would have discussed the reopening of Hormuz and and putting an end to the war. But China, we have historical evidence to believe that it does not involve itself politically and also militarily in other conflicts. Now, China does have a lot of stake in Middle East, $270 billion of investment in infrastructure, and also 10-11% of the Chinese oil imports are from Iran, and total China depends, I think, anywhere between 30 to 40% for its total energy imports from Strait of Hormuz. But as I said before, China has sorted itself out. Look at Chinese imports from Brazil. They have risen over 10% pre-war levels versus this last month in April. Also, Russian oil, 14% year-on-year hike. So I think as long as they are covered in terms of their energy, they're not going to jump in. And even if they do jump in, that is going to be very subtle. That is going to be only, how do you put it, like diplomatically. We're not going to see anything stronger from China. And I think Trump expected that, but I would not have expected it from President Xi at all.
Well, yes, he's kept his cards very close to him. As you mentioned, they're more flexible in that regards, but other countries are not. And you mentioned that other Asian markets are really feeling the pinch, as well as European markets as well, because the Strait of Hormuz has been closed for over 2 months now, and it's becoming more and more pushing into the red, you could say. Do you think Iran could decide to not change its mind, but actually help partly reopen the Strait of Hormuz? We know that there has been some Chinese vessels have actually been able to pass through there from what reports have provided. Do you think that Iran might decide that actually we're going to let some vessels come through?
Well, of course, and it has been going on before as well. And I believe that even if there will be an agreement, it is also going to be a staged, staggered sort of in phases, the reopening of Hormuz. Chinese vessels have gone by, even Pakistan has received a lot of vessels during this conflict. And Iran also needs such vessels going through Strait of Hormuz in order to collect what they call the Tehran toll booth to get some more revenue. But traffic still is down minimum 90% as compared to the pre-war levels. And I once again believe that is like the biggest bargaining power Iran has. You mentioned that European countries have also started to feel the heat right now. I think as the time goes by July, August, we're going to see proper shortages of oil products in Europe as well, and even in the US, because their strategic reserves are falling down. The production is high, but they still import oil. So, I mean, the more the conflict goes on, the more it is directly proportional to economic pain for the European countries and for the Western countries as well. Not right now, but it will happen. So that is the closest card that Iran would play very carefully, although it has downsides for Iran itself. A restarting of the war would not be very well for Iran. So there are so many angles and so many factors, as we have just discussed, that it is very hard to predict what is going to happen, especially and finally when human agency is involved. So who knows what everyone is thinking.
Yes, well, this is the thing. It's trying to figure out what is the next step and what's the US's next strategy. But just on that, Trump has previously said that the Strait of Hormuz doesn't affect the US, which technically I don't think is correct, because they do get oil from there, and their gas prices for local citizens has been climbing very, very high. On top of that, I also want to bring attention to the fact of the US blockading Iranian ports and that having an impact on Iran. Exactly where are we in regards to the economies on both sides of this war, in relation to the US also being impacted and now Iran being impacted? Who is more weaker in relation to these things being, blocked or shut?
A very nice, very good question. I think to answer the first part of the question, if you look at the primary division's frac spread count and the frac job count, the numbers that track the actual drilling activity, US production recently touched another record high back in 2025. And even the frac spread count is at 185 or 184, rising consistently from the previous few weeks, which means that the US shale production is very strong. So it is technically right that the US has a very good cushion against the current oil supply disruptions. The US is an energy superpower, actually, in terms of LNG, in terms of jet fuel, in terms of oil production. So somehow it is isolated, but as you just mentioned, the gas prices have increased. But notice that the gas prices have not increased as much as they have increased in other parts of the world. So that is one point. The second, in terms of US blockading Iran, the common thinking is that Iran's most of the storage in Iran is only on Kharj Islands, but during the previous few years, because it was always under sanctions and they were preparing for such a eventuality, they have also built other storage levels as well. The current capacity is, once you start filling the storage capacity, you do it until 80%. But in cases of emergency, you can also fill them up to 90%. And if you involve all of them, all of the storage facilities, Iran still has a lot more to go. I think right now anywhere between 55 to 65% of the nameplate capacity, storage capacity in Iran is filled up, but that leaves room for 40-45%, which means they also have around 1 month or 1.5 months before they start to willingly shut down production. So that is one thing. So it will start to impact the blockade, will start to impact Iran, but not right now. And who is on the stronger end? Both have their vulnerabilities. US's President Trump's rating have fallen down. The US consumer sentiment index have fallen down. The November elections are.
Oh, Mr. Rizvi.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Sorry, just quickly finish your point. Sorry, before we cut off. Go ahead.
Yes. So the US is also vulnerable.
Oh no, I think
Iran was suffering a lot, so they are vulnerable in their own way.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Rizvi. We just caught just that last little fragment of what you were saying, so thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. Thank you again. Right, we stay with the conflict in Iran, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US President Donald Trump spoke on Sunday about developments involving Iran and the war. Israeli media said the leaders discussed the possibility of a renewed conflict with Iran, along with ongoing regional tensions. After the call, Trump warned that Iran should move quickly in negotiations, saying time is of the essence, while also suggesting he believes a deal is still possible. The talks come as diplomatic efforts continue, with no announcements of decisions or timelines for any military action. Now, because of that, oil prices are climbing up again as efforts to end the US-Israeli war on Iran appear to have stalled. Brent crude climbed to its highest level in 2 weeks, while WTI also advanced a 2-week peak amid renewed market gains. The rise follows last week's 7% surge as Trump's Xi talks, so Trump and China talks, failed to ease Strait of Hormuz tensions. Regional risk also escalated following drone attacks on the UAE's Barakah nuclear plant and Saudi Arabia, which intercepted drones from Iraqi airspace. President Trump is expected to meet with advisors on Tuesday to discuss military options on Iran. Staying on the Middle East, and at least 8 people were reported killed in Israeli strikes across the Gaza Strip, according to local health officials. The latest escalation also includes the killing of a senior Hamas commander, as ceasefire talks between the two sides remained stalled.
Israeli strikes in the Gaza Strip killed at least 8 people on Sunday, according to Gaza health officials, as ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas showed little progress. The Israeli military said the strikes targeted Hamas militants and infrastructure, while Palestinian health officials reported civilian casualties in several incidents. In central Gaza, an airstrike near a community kitchen close to Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah killed at least 3 people, with medics also reporting 2 further deaths in a separate strike near a bakery in the same area. Emergency crews and residents searched through rubble after strikes hit a residential building in Gaza. Witnesses described heavy destruction and fires in the area, while Palestinian civil defense officials said rescue efforts were hindered by limited equipment and ongoing damage. Israel confirmed the killing of senior Hamas commander Izz al-Din al-Haddad in a strike on Gaza City on Friday. Hamas later confirmed his death, along with members of his family.
Over the weekend, we eliminated the master murderer Izz al-Din al-Haddad. He was effectively number 1 in Hamas's military wing, that is Hamas in Gaza, and he has been eliminated.
Indirect talks toward a long-term ceasefire remain ongoing, with both sides still divided over key security arrangements and the terms of a possible agreement.
At least 5 people, including 2 children, were killed and several others wounded in Israeli attacks, according to Lebanese health officials. Strikes hit multiple towns with reports of additional attacks and drone activity in other areas. Drones were also seen flying over Beirut and surrounding areas. The strikes come despite the ceasefire extension aimed at reducing tensions along the border. Now, turning to the war in Ukraine, and Russia has responded to one of Kyiv's largest drone attacks on Moscow with overnight missile and drone strikes targeting several regions across Ukraine. The latest escalation comes after Russian officials described the Ukrainian barrage as one of the biggest aerial attacks on the capital since the start of the war.
Russia launched overnight drone and missile strikes on Ukraine, targeting the southern city of Odessa and the southeastern city of Dnipro, Ukrainian officials said Monday. Authorities reported at least 12 people were injured in attacks across central and southern regions of the country. In Odessa, a major Black Sea export port, drones struck residential buildings as well as a school and kindergarten. Regional officials said an 11-year-old boy and a 59-year-old man were injured. In Dnipro, Regional Governor Alexander Hanja said at least 9 people were wounded in the attacks. The latest Russian strikes come after Ukraine carried out one of its largest attacks on the Moscow region since the start of the war more than 4 years ago. Russian authorities said at least 4 people were killed. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the large-scale drone operation was a response to continued Russian attacks on Ukraine.
The Russians need to think about their refineries, their oil facilities, their enterprises, and not about how to disrupt the lives of other peoples in Ukraine, Moldova, or any other neighboring country. Today, the activity indicators show that our proactive operations per day are higher than those of the Russians, and this is a very serious result. We will increase all forms of supply for our army, drones, ground robots, shells, all resources to maintain proper protection and our active frontline operations.
Russian officials claimed more than 1,000 Ukrainian drones were intercepted over the past 24 hours. Russia's defense ministry said it intercepted 556 drones overnight and into Sunday morning, with another 30 drones shot down after dawn. According to the ministry, the interceptions took place across 14 Russian regions, as well as annexed Crimea and over the Black and Azov Seas, marking one of the largest Ukrainian aerial assaults of the war so far.
Now over to the Caribbean, and Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez has accused the United States of fabricating what he called a fraudulent case to justify new economic sanctions and possible military intervention against Havana. The remarks came after U.S. news outlet Axios reported citing classified U.S. intelligence that claimed Cuba had acquired more than 300 military drones and discussed possible attacks on Guantanamo Bay and other U.S. targets. Rodriguez rejected the allegation, saying Cuba neither threatens nor desires war, and insisted the country is prepared only for self-defense under the UN Charter. Meanwhile, a senior US official told Axios the Trump administration sees Cuba as a growing threat because of drone warfare developments. Now we head over to what's going on in China, with millions of butterflies taking to the skies over southwest China's Yunnan province as the annual emergence season begins in Honghe Butterfly Valley. The event takes place every late spring and early summer, when vast numbers of butterflies emerge from their chrysalis across the valley in Jinping County, one of the world's richest regions for butterfly species. Visitors gather to watch colorful swarms flutter through forests and fields, transforming the landscape into a sea of color, as you can see right there. Now to a mashup of tech news around the world. And there's a Chinese company unveiling the world's first transformable humanoid mechanical suit. Google helping users from doom scrolling, and Instagram provides users with an interesting picture feature for those who want a little bit more privacy and security. Here's more with A News' Nathan Kamanga with that story and more on Switch.
This is a scene from the Transformers movie Rise of the Beasts, released in 2023. Pretty cool how the robots morph into different objects. Now, if you're anything like me, you'd fancy having the power to do something like that. Well, do I have good news for you? Because a Chinese robotics company called Unitree has unveiled the world's first transformable humanoid mechanical suit. What's it used for, you might ask? Well, civilian transportation. Called the GD-01, the mass-produced suit stands at almost double the size of an average human and is equipped with a 500-kilogram class dynamic balance control system, which allows seamless switching between two modes, one for walking and the other for navigating complex terrains. So yeah, get yourself one if you like for a whopping $650,000 US. Just try not to step on anyone's toes with that thing. Now, big news for the Android community. Google has unveiled Android 17, and it spots some pretty cool features, including one designed to keep you from doom scrolling. It's called Pause Point, and it works by making you wait for 10 seconds after you open any app you've labeled yourself as being a distraction. In that time, you should be able to decide if you really want to commit to opening the app. Another feature is called Rambler, which offers advanced real-time dictation that removes filler words and makes your speech more concise, basically keeping you from rambling. Finally, a feature that can turn a 2-minute voice note into the one sentence it should have been in the first place. Okay, so if you ignored the 10-second wait and still launched Instagram, you should have noticed a new feature called Instants. It's found under the direct messaging tab and works by allowing you to send photos to your friends that can only be viewed once. When viewed, your friends can either react or reply to it before it disappears forever. Unlike something like Snapchat, for example, that's loaded with filters, Instants is more focused on capturing raw moments and does not allow any retouching. So make sure you get it right before posting a photo that your friends cannot unsee. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to catch up with us for more tech news and insights on the next show.
Very interesting. I love that Google update to stop you from rambling. The amount of times I'm leaving voice messages for minutes and minutes when I can just say goodbye and thank you for coming. Anyway, thank you for watching Daybreak with me, Nadia Jani. It's been a pleasure to have you. Make sure you return back tomorrow for more updates, but keep watching A News as we'll bring you more information throughout the day and further information on the World Urban Forum taking place as well. Stay with us.